Hey guys, Henry Toraño over here, and I want to chat a little bit on what we call functional volume and how we use it to design training programs for mixed modal or competitive fitness athletes. Now, the first thing that we need to know is what is functional volume, and it's the required ability to perform a certain movement in or across various modalities, and to what extent one should have proficiency in those. Now, I'll give you a clear example of what that looks like. The important thing, or the first thing that we need to consider, is what is the event and what are going to be the prerequisites for that particular event. Now, the easiest example to be able to illustrate that would be, let's say, running, and how much or how good you need to be at running for the open versus for a sanctional live event, let's say palooza, for example. Now, we know that odds are, because history can attest to it, that you will be running at palooza, and we also know that you have never had to run in the CrossFit Open, mainly because those workouts need to be recordable, right? So, do you even need to be good at running to succeed at the Open? Well, we could say no. Now, do you need to be good at running if you want to be competitive at Palooza? Then yeah. So that would be a clear, black and white, kind of all or nothing example of that. But there's plenty more things to consider. When we look at gymnastics movements in particular, and we say, well, can you do muscle-ups? And the answer is yeah. Well, how many muscle-ups do you need to be able to do to succeed in the Open? And that's where we have to go back and look at previous years and previous workouts to identify the amount of work that is required for that particular movement within traditional Open workouts. Now, we could say, again, just looking back at precedent, that CrossFit workouts or CrossFit Open workouts will require the athlete to be proficient in anywhere from 30 to 40 muscle-up reps, right? So regardless of what level you're in right now, you need to start building through adequate skills progressions, and I'm not going to get too much into that because that could take a much longer time. But we need to be able to accumulate 30 to 40 reps in low fatigue settings, then be able to accumulate 30 to 40 sets in moderate aerobic fatigue settings. Then we need to be able to accumulate 30 to 40 muscle-up reps in complementary fatigue settings, into non-complementary settings, into be able to hit 30 to 40 muscle-up reps in any setting, regardless of movement combination or fatigue levels. Then you're ready, or you're at the highest level for that particular movement for that particular competition. Now, it's not only relatable to like the cyclical modality example, as I illustrated with the running, and it's not only applicable to gymnastics, as I just mentioned with the muscle-ups. We also need to consider types of contractions, and the first one that comes to mind would be hip flexion and extension repetitions, and we know that could come in a variety of ways, from box jumps to cleans to snatches to deadlifts and many others. But we also need to have that in mind as far as how many contractions do athletes need to be able to handle of that particular pattern to be able to thrive in the event that they're going to be joining. And I use that particular example because we're most of us are familiar with clients, or maybe yourselves, that have experienced some issues of lower back fatigue when we get past a certain point of reps. So that would be another good area to kind of sit back and start looking at the demands of previous years in that particular event, and be able to identify what the functional volume is for either modalities as a whole, or a particular movement within a modality, or for repetition quantity of a particular pattern.
Oof.